Well, hey, everybody, I'm back with another KOIN conversation. And today, one of my favorite hobbies to do involves the backcountry and skiing. And I've got with me Dallas Glass of the Northwest Avalanche Center. You're the deputy director and a forecaster yourself. And I just want to learn all about what you guys do to keep people safe in the backcountry. So, welcome, Dallas.
Hey, Kelly, thanks so much for having me. It's great to get to talk about snow and get excited about our wintertime mountains.
Yeah. So, the whole program, the Northwest Abbey Center, we all call it NWAC for short. But what you guys do essentially is forecast for people who recreate in the backcountry. So, the backcountry meaning those areas that are not protected or, I guess, looked at by ski resorts and covered by ski resorts. So, what is kind of the goal of NWAC, and what do you guys do here across the winter season?
You described it really well. So we really our mission is to actually to reduce avalanche impacts on our communities by making sure we're informing the public and giving them reliable information, and that takes a couple of different forms: mountain weather and avalanche forecast, education, outreach, and data. And so we kind of look at those three things: the forecast, the education and outreach, and the data, and we all of our products are built around getting those things to our community so people can go outside and have a really good time. And as you described, the backcountry, we really consider that anywhere outside of an open ski resort or off of an open highway. Those places have their own staff that are managing the hazards for the guests, for the travelers. But we're talking about people who are going snowmobiling, they're going snowshoeing, they're going hiking, skiing, snowboarding, all those fun things that we get to do in these beautiful winter mountains here in our backyards. Those are the people we're trying to make sure they have information to go out there and make good decisions and come home safe.
So what does that kind of area look like across the Northwest? You guys cover Oregon and also Washington, and just the entire range of areas that people could maybe wander out to. Is that right?
Yeah, so for the Northwest Avalanche Center, we cover the Washington Cascades, the Olympics, and Mount Hood. There are in the United States about 24 avalanche centers covering most of the major recreational areas. So there in Oregon for y'all, not only do you have NWAC covering Mount Hood, there's also the Central Oregon Avalanche Center kind of covering the mountains there around Bend, and the Wallowa Avalanche Center out in Eastern Oregon. So a couple different avalanche centers that y'all can go recreate in between, but we all work really closely together. We have a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication, both in training and in how we produce our products so that you, the user, are going to get the same type of information from each of these centers depending on where you're going.
I had no idea there was another few centers in Oregon. I thought it was just you guys, and it kind of stopped at Mount Hood. But that's amazing, just to keep people safe back there. So, what does a typical day look like for a forecaster? Because I know you actually have people in the field out there on their ski touring setups, and they're going out to take data and look at slopes. That just really impresses me. So, kind of get into the weeds of all of that, and then maybe also how you find these people to go out there and do that.
Yeah, so we have two major parts of our operation. We have the weather forecasting side. So our office is actually co-located here in Seattle with the National Weather Service, and we do employ a couple of we call them avalanche meteorologists. So folks that are very much weather forecasters who also think a tremendous amount about snow. And we put out our own mountain weather forecasts every day. Now those are really long shifts. Like as a meteorologist, like how much time it takes to put together a really good weather forecast. And so when we're here in the Seattle office, these are entirely office-based shifts for us, but they run from like 4 in the morning to like 7 o'clock at night. So they're
Wow.
really long shifts. But that's to provide really good up-to-date weather to the ski areas, to the Department of Transportation, and to those of you who are going to go play out in the mountains. We put out our first forecast in the morning around 7 a.m. We do an afternoon weather forecast at 2 p.m. Our field-based avalanche forecasters, we have nine field-based forecasters here, including myself. Most mornings, we actually go to the field to start the day. So we're up really early. We're probably up around 5 o'clock, maybe even a little earlier, looking at the overnight weather. How much snow did we get? How windy is it? What's it looking like for today? We're coming up with a plan for where we're going to go. And we're actually going out there with really intentional questions in our brains. We are seeking to fill in gaps in our understanding of what's going on in the mountains. So that may be that we're looking to cover a lot of ground that day on a snowmobile and see as many different slopes as we can. Or maybe we've got some layers in the snowpack that are being really problematic, and we're going to go out and we're going to dig holes in the snow so we can look and we can analyze those layers. And we're trying to do that across our entire region. So all the way from the Canadian border all the way down to Mount Hood. All of our forecasters are locally based. So we have forecasters that live up in Bellingham and over in Leavenworth, and down in Clay Elum, and even down in Parkdale on Mount Hood. So we're really spread out, and we specialize in parts of our region. We go out there, we gather all that information, and then we've got to get it back because we actually put out our avalanche forecast at 6 p.m. at night. So that means to do that, we've got to start that process by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're coming back, we're bringing the data that we collected, we're bringing data from our professional partners, the ski areas, DOT, local guide services. And actually, a lot of the place we get information is crowdsourcing it from the public. Folks just like you that went out skiing and snowboarding that day, you can give us really important information that helps us then build that avalanche forecast that comes out at 6 o'clock for the next day. We put it out at 6 o'clock so that you can use it and plan your next day that night. You don't have to wait till the morning. You're already in the car driving to the trailhead to see what the hazard is. We're trying to get it to you the evening before so you can read it and you can comprehend it and you can really plan based on the information in that forecast.
Yeah, I love how there's just enough people who recreate in these backcountry areas for this to exist and to be able to keep people safe when they want to get on those snowmobiles and get out on those back slopes. We do hear about maybe a couple of deaths every season, those dangers in the backcountry, and they really can be deadly. So I just think it's amazing that we have this resource for folks to try and stay as safe as possible when they do plan to go to those backcountry slopes, or you're just snowshoeing, or you are someone who's got a snowmobile and a big group that wants to head back out there. Just to have that resource is amazing. So my next question is, how did this all start? How did NWAC come to be? Now kind of a branch from the National Weather Service, and to be what it is now.
You asked a very timely question. We actually celebrated our 50th anniversary on December the 6th. So December 6th, 1975, Mark Moore, Rich Marriott, and Bud Reiner published the first avalanche forecast from the Northwest Avalanche Center. So we just turned 50. We're pretty excited about that here at NWAC. NWAC is the second oldest avalanche center in the country. Colorado is just a few years ahead of us. So we've been publishing avalanche forecasts for the mountains here in the Cascades, Mount Hood, since the 1970s. So it's been a really incredible process to see this grow from three avalanche meteorologists that were primarily working here out of the office to now we have a staff, including our nonprofit, of 17 individuals, 11 forecasters and 6 nonprofit staff working to cover, to live in these communities and to cover these areas from the field and to build relationships with the people that we're serving, and it not just be that we're forecasting out of an office. So it's an incredible thing that Mark and Rich and Bud built, and it's exciting to get to celebrate our 50th anniversary, our 50th birthday this year as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Can't believe it. 50 years. Congrats on that. That's pretty amazing. And all the work that you guys do. Now, I kind of want to learn more about your background and what you do, what you like to ski, some of your favorite areas. This video here is just a little ski tour up to Paradise on Rainier that I did a couple years ago. But what about you? What is kind of your background in skiing and avalanche forecasting?
So I'm actually from Birmingham, Alabama. I was born and raised down there.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that's the most confidence-inspiring thing as your avalanche forecaster. But I moved out west for graduate school, and I did my master's is in hydrology and soil physics. And so when I finished up school, I actually started ski patrolling at a ski area in Lake Tahoe. Moved into being the avalanche forecaster for that ski area. Spent 5 years working as the avalanche forecaster there at the ski area for a highway And then now I'm like about 2 decades, actually, this is my 20th season of avalanche forecasting. And so I've worked for ski areas, highways, guiding operations, and of course, a lot with the Northwest Avalanche Center. I've been with NWAC in some shape, form, or fashion since 2013.
Wow.
So, really, it's been fun to watch this operation grow and change and evolve to meet the needs of the growing backcountry community here. So, I think initially my wife and I moved to Washington, thinking we'd be here for a few years, and here, here we are 14 years later. We love it here.
Yeah.
And so these are definitely we consider these mountains home, and we love getting to play in these world-class hills that are in our backyard.
Yeah.
Um, you just showed a video of Mount Rainier, absolutely one of the prettiest ski tours on the planet.
Yes.
Um, is pretty amazing.
It's amazing how just the places you can go when you have a ski setup like that. I picked one up maybe 5 or 6 years ago just to use demo set, and it's been with me for I guess the last 6, 7 years, and I've gone some pretty cool places. I'm mostly exploring like the Mount Hood area now, being in Portland, but my home is Seattle, and I love Rainier and that Mount St. Helens tour as well. That's always a fun one too. But I want to get back into, I guess, the avalanche dangers. As a forecaster, what are some of like the main factors, maybe focusing on Mount Hood, that you notice in a season where you can tell there's going to be some kind of sketchy situations, or maybe some avalanche events in the forecast?
Sure, yeah. So one of the most important things to recognize with avalanche danger is just like the weather, it changes every single day. So it changes not even every single day, it changes moment to moment, hour to hour, year to year. And so that ongoing change that we have within the snowpack is one of the things that makes it very tricky, but it's also one of the things that makes it really engaging, right? If it was like super simple, this wouldn't be nearly as much fun. So that the one thing we have here in the Northwest, because this thing's changing so much, we have really dynamic weather here. We have really big mountains with a really big ocean next to us. We get a whole lot of precipitation here, and that is some of the snowiest places on Earth. Measured snowfalls have been here in the Cascades. And so we see wild shifts in our weather, and that results in wild shifts in our avalanche danger. So, really recognizing that these things are dynamic and they change all the time. So, we really want to make sure that if we're going to go out and play in the mountains, we want to read the forecast, make sure we have the most up-to-date information that we're going to go play with. Now, some really unique things that we get on places like Mount Hood, because Mount Hood is this really nice big volcano that sticks up on its own. It has two things that it does really well. It grabs that moisture off the Pacific and it wrings it out. That's why we have we have three great ski areas there on the mountain, and they get tremendous amounts of snowfall. It also grabs a lot of wind coming up off the Pacific, and so it can also be an extremely windy place. So things that we really look for that can really increase the avalanche danger quickly are heavy precipitation and strong winds. We see both of those in spades on Mount Hood.
Yeah. I when I went to climb Mount Hood back in 2019, we tried to ski tour up from the Timberline parking lot. And it was, in the early morning hours when it's the coldest, but the winds made it just a complete sheet of ice. And it was that way through the rest of the morning. Just the exposure made it so we couldn't grip whatsoever. Didn't bring our ice spikes for our skis either. So we had to walk the whole way with our crampons. And it really didn't soften up until the afternoon. So I think it really is that exposure, specifically that high, and just the direction of where Timberline is kind of oriented on the mountain, that, that route to the summit, where any of those kind of backcountry bowls there, that rime ice and the icing can be a huge dangerous factor to skiers. And I think that's
Oh, yeah.
something very specific to Mount Hood too.
Yeah, Mount Hood can produce. So rime ice is just like when the wind just creates it, like adds on ice pellets to whatever it touches, right? So
Yeah.
that can be the side of your face, it could be the chairlift, it could be the lift tower, and you can see some of the most impressive rime ice growing off of the lift towers on Mount Hood that you'll see anywhere on Earth.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the things that place does the best.
Yeah, very, very cool looking too, if you get some photos of that. So what trends are you kind of seeing so far this season? I know we're kind of getting into mid-December, and ski resorts are not open. It's been quite tough for Oregon, and I expect a good number of spots in Washington too, just with the warmer weather and these atmospheric river vents that just bring in these warmer tropical punches of moisture and temperatures. It's been tough. So, what are your thoughts on the next few weeks, maybe the winter as a whole, kind of what you're seeing right now as well?
Yeah, great question. So I think I feel myself getting antsy now that we're into December, and I
Yeah.
really want to get out there on my skis. I did swap out for my first ski day of the season just this past weekend, but it was maybe a little scratchy and a little thin. Yeah, it's not the best start to the ski season for us here. Don't stress, it's still really early.
Yeah.
We've definitely had later starts to the ski year. As you mentioned, you said it a couple times in that statement, like warm is really what we've been seeing. It hasn't been a lack of precipitation. I was looking at some of the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS Snowtail sites the other day. A lot of them are actually showing around 100% and even a little higher than 100% precipitation so far for this water year. But yet our snowpacks are generally below 50% of average for this time of year. That just speaks to how warm it's really been. That's okay. Things can always turn around. We really need that combination here in the Northwest of moisture and cold temperatures because, with the exception of places like Hood that are much higher, most of our mountains in the Washington Cascades are a little lower. So
Yeah.
I used to work with this guy who'd been a groomer at the ski area for 40 years, and I tell this story a lot, but I always remember Greg when anytime we'd start to talk about what's the winter going to be like, he'd just grumble and he'd go, "Ah, it always snows in winter." And so I always have to remind myself, we're always going to have good skiing. We're always going to have good riding. We may not have it right now, but it will come because it's wintertime here in the Northwest.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect way to put it. A lot of people kind of freak out about the date of opening. Oh, it snowed a lot in November. What's happening with the climate? And it's a good talker, but it really isn't something to worry about because we get like maybe 9 to 10 big storms across the winter, and that's what builds our snowpack. And those will come, especially after the new year. I think, that's when that cold air really sets up, and we just have that better chance of the colder, larger storms. And yeah, the water is here. It's just falling as rain instead of snow because we're too warm. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think we're going to have a fine winter. A few more questions. What is one thing that you think people maybe misunderstand about reading slopes and avalanches and maybe the forecast that you guys might put out?
Yeah, great question. So I think the number one thing that I sort of experience when I talk to people after they have looked at our avalanche forecast is people tend to they see the color and maybe they see some of the icons that we have within the forecast and they immediately are like, I know what they're saying today.
Mm.
And what's really interesting is that we also know that this is nature, right? Like nature doesn't like boxes. And we only have so many boxes that we've drawn around. If we have five danger levels that we utilize, low, moderate, considerable, high, and extreme, and then those icons that we use, we have like nine types of avalanches that we talk about, but nature is infinitely more complex than that. And so the best thing you can do to make sure that you have the full understanding isn't just like glance at that color or glance at that icon, but actually read the forecast. One of the fun parts of my job every day is my job is to communicate to you, is to paint a picture of what the mountains look like. And so in doing that, we use those words to paint that picture. And so by reading the forecast, you can really understand and get a detailed view of what our professional opinion is of what's going on up in the mountains for that day. Second thing is that it's not just all about danger. You can also figure out where the good snow is, whether you want to go climb Mount Hood or whether you want to go ride really deep snow on your sled. All of these things, you can get that kind of information out of the forecast too. So it's not all just like, oh, don't go here and don't go there, but where's the good snow and how can I have fun to go enjoy this outside?
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't even consider that. I thought it was all doom and gloom, but it's not. There's some really good info. And you said it so well, too. Just painting a complete picture about forecasting in general. We kind of show the weather forecast, at least in my industry, of here's 7 days and 7 emojis and 7 words to describe the weather. And it's much more complex than that. So it's just important that we've got people out there that are trying to paint that weather story. I think you said that beautifully about what you guys do. So really, really like that. Okay, what is outreach like for you? You guys are often on social media. I think it's awesome that you've got these field reports of your backcountry field meteorologists out there. Do you guys also offer classes? Like, how do people kind of get involved with you guys?
Yeah, great question. So we do offer free 90-minute avalanche awareness classes all throughout the winter. And so if you're new to the region, you're thinking about going out into the mountains, um, or maybe you've been doing it a long time. I actually like to go sit in on these classes about once a year. Some of them are taught locally at gear shops and breweries, down there in Portland and in Parkdale and Hood River. Some of them are taught online. So if you're busy and you can't slip away to go to one of these events in person, you can always jump online. If you go to our website, www.nwac.us, click on the education link, you'll find a calendar of all those free 90-minute avalanche awareness classes. So that's a great way to get a baseline level of information of what our product is and what the hazard is that you're dealing with in the mountains. Um, Number two, like outreach, one of the biggest things for us is just helping people know that we exist. There's a lot of skiers and boarders that are really familiar with NWAC, and we love all the people that like to go sliding around on snow. But there's tons of ways to enjoy our winter mountains. You can go for a winter hike, you can go snowshoeing, you can go riding your snowmobile, you can go make snow angels. They're all great ways to play in the mountains. So one of the things we really spend a lot of time doing is actually trying to do outreach into the community, whether it's doing news interviews like we're doing today, or even just going and popping up the 10-ended trailhead and talking to people as they walk by to help them understand that we're here to be a resource for them, to help them have the best day they can out in the mountains.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just so impressed with what you guys do. Last few questions. Are there any improvements to the forecast or new things you guys are doing and offering to the public?
Oh, wow. So this year, I would say most of our changes this year are actually more like the behind the scenes kind of pieces,
Hmm.
which are pretty exciting. They're like actually some like really critical staffing pieces for us by allowing our employees to just have permanent jobs and this they can be here year in year out to serve our communities because that's ultimately why we're all here. Um, but yeah, we're one of the other big things we do is we actually work quite a bit on the national level to coordinate between all these avalanche centers. So I mentioned earlier, there's 24 avalanche centers in the United States, and you can see all of those at avalanche.org. We'll link you to the Wallowa Center or the Central Oregon Center. We do a lot of coordination between all 24 of those centers. We do a lot of training together. We try to make sure that our products look the same, that you, the user, are getting the same type of information. And so there's been a ton of effort on the back end to make sure that we're all working together and not just being our little independent bubbles, our own little islands. So that's been a huge piece for us over the last few years is really collaboration over just about anything else.
That's amazing. It's just so cool to see the growth of NWAC and just the excitement and enthusiasm too to get people out there and just all the resources across the U.S. and the Pacific Northwest. So thank you so much, Dallas. Is there anything else you want to mention before we sign off here?
Yeah, I have one last thing. We're a community-based avalanche center. And that means you can see that in so many different ways. NWAC is a public-private partnership between the U.S. Forest Service, which is who I work for, and the nonprofit. So you can become a member of the nonprofit. You can also be part of this community by giving information, submitting those observations like we talked about earlier. If you go to our website, there's a big button that says submit observation. You can share information with us, the forecast staff, and with your community, or you can volunteer your time. So you can give money, you can give information, you can give time. These are all great ways to get involved with NWAC, help support this community-based avalanche center and this public-private partnership. Can't tell you how much we would not be here without everybody who's out there playing in the snow and helping be a part of this great, wonderful community here in the Northwest.
Yeah, and I hope you guys get a few more members and folks helping out. Just so many enthusiasts out in this part of the country. So we'll have all those links on KOIN.com and hopefully kind of spread awareness of what you guys do. But again, thank you so much. I hope the snow finally shows up at some point this month. Would be nice. So we'll see if that happens. But Dallas, thank you again for the interview and happy skiing.
Happy skiing. Thanks, Kelley.